We're going to talk about painting rotors too.
Painting rotors, man. You fucker.
Painting the rotors?
No.
Okay, guys, so this is how we paint the rotors. These are bead blasted out of the bead blast machine. You can see the irregularities of where the rust was pitted, where all that was rusted, and the nice smooth metal with no irregularities where it had paint on it. Now we blasted all of that off. This is just straight up steel, okay? You can see a little bit of a mark there where somebody's hands got oily or wet or something. Same thing there. But we're going to paint over these rotors. I'm just going to paint all the way in the holes and all the way around the brake surface, because we're going to ride the bike the first time with the old pads in it. Yeah, we're going to put fresh pads in before we go racing. But just to test the hydraulics and score the rotors, we're going to use the old original pads from 20/30 years ago that are no good. You know, I wouldn't trust them to race on. So we're going to build the bike, use the old pads, ride over freshly painted rotors, let the old pads scrape a perfect circle around the wear mark, and what we'll be left with are rotors that are painted nicely everywhere else, all inside the holes, all inside the crevices, and around the part that mounts to the rotor. Because they are steel, we're going to be washing the bike, riding in the mud, we don't want rust. Start with freshly bead blasted parts. That's got a little bit more work to go there. Brake line was in the way. But you want to get all the gunk blasted off so you can get down to the parts where you can work on them. These little metal parts here will get blued. I'll heat them up, dip them in oil, and blue them. But I'm going to go ahead and strip this caliper down and this master cylinder down and get them rebuilt, get the brakes on this thing. But you want to start with freshly bead blasted parts and get all the gunk off. And I know it's not good to get the sandblast around parts. You're going to have seals open and all, but you're going to be washing all this stuff anyway. You got to blast all the gunk off so when you clean it, it is actually clean. Then when you go in with fresh seals, you're good to go. Be careful you don't break these. Just twist them and work them, twist them and work them. But spin it while you pull it. Look how filthy that is down in there, guys. I literally can't even see down in there good enough to get to them, guys. I'm going to have to bead blast that surface out. Again, it's all coming apart and getting torn apart and cleaned anyway. Now what you don't want to do, guys, is you don't want to bead blast right directly on that bore. That's not good for it. But what we are going to do is put that piston back in like this. And we're going to bead blast that. Because I got a new piston in the new rebuild kit, and that piston will keep the bead blast from getting down into it. And you know, we just won't blast on this end. We'll just blast on this end and clean that all up real good in there. And then we'll just use picks and brake clean, and get it all nice and clean, and go back in with our new parts, and hopefully the bore's in good shape and it works. Usually is. Look at which way your piston goes, guys. Goes like that, right? Make sure your seals are going in the right direction. Make sure you got the right diameter seal in the right place. Okay? See how that diameter is smaller than that one? Don't put that seal there and that one there. That's wrong. You see that? Put that seal back there and this seal up there, and look at how you face them. Don't face it that way, and don't face it that way. You see, you got to face it this way and face it this way. Okay? Like that. See that? And then you put your spring on at the end. Now I do lube these. I definitely do lube these when I put them over this piston. If you don't lube them, you're going to tear them. And if you tear them, they won't work. Just hold it down in there with your thumb like that, and then work your ring in. Okay. And then get that circular end pushed all the way into place like that. That's what keeps all the dirt out. Cotter pin that small, so I just ran a double loop of safety wire through. If you're going to wire those like that, guys, double loop them. Make sure you get plenty of grease back there. Okay. And Loctite your security bolt on there. You don't want it coming out. And don't forget the pedal stopper. There's a bolt that goes up in there that's a pedal stopper. Don't forget that, and put a lock nut on it. But I'm going to show you guys how to get these out. If you have one of these blowers, with a rubber tip on it, it's easier to get a good seal down in there. Somewhere I had one. If I don't have one tonight, I might have to borrow one from 2 tomorrow. But yeah, that's what you need. You need one of these blowers with a rubber tip. And for the love of God, guys, keep everything away from that piston, because you're just making a firearm. You are building a firearm. And I love firearms, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with firearms. But you got to be careful. You're building a lot of pressure in that chamber. And that piston will have resistance until the pressure builds up enough, and then it'll pop out like a bullet. And that will break your ribs, cut your fingers off. It will tear you to pieces. So make sure when you build pressure in there, you know. The other thing you could do, and I might just do that to test the rest of the system, is you can pump it out hydraulically. I could hook this caliper up to that back line. Yeah, let's just do that. Let's do that. Now look, like I said, these calipers, when they're old and nasty like that, they build pressure, and they're nasty. You don't want your fingers in there. You don't want your, you don't want to be I've seen guys grab them like this and work on them and apply pressure and get their fingers cut between there and broken. Get your hands out of there. So now that we got a hydraulic system full of pressure, see what we're doing here? We're just going to pump it out. See that? We're just pumping that piston out. See it working? I'm just using the brake pedal, just pumping it out. Right about now it's going to let go. Standing back a little bit. Fluid's going to go everywhere. That's why I got it on top of the rags. There it went. Okay. It didn't explode out because it let go, but the pressure leaked out. So there we go. That's one good way to get the piston out without using compressed air and shooting it across the room and hurting somebody. So I'm going to go ahead and get that out of there, get that cleaned up, bead blast that body, see what I can do to salvage this caliper, see if I can rebuild it. Look at all that fluid running down. See that fluid is just running down with gravity. It's got nowhere else, you know, it's got nothing stopping it, so it's just bleeding down. Keep your area clean. You did all this work and painted all this stuff. You don't want to get brake fluid all over it and mess everything up. Okay, pulling the old seals out with a pick. It's as simple as stabbing into them and getting them raised up and pulling them out. There's a dust seal. There's an oil seal. You do ruin them stabbing into them. But so what? You're not supposed to reuse them anyway. They're junk. And then I take the pick and I go down the grooves and I clean the grooves out like that. See what I'm doing? If you have dirt and all that stuff and old rust and junk and debris down under those seals, and you put the new seals in on top of them, you won't have enough space for the rubber to flex properly, and it'll jam your brakes up. It'll make for tight brakes. Get your new seal, look for the taper on it. A lot of these look pretty flat. This one looks pretty flat, but if I were to pick which side were slightly tapered, I would say it's going in that direction. And what you want is you want the taper to push the piston back in. You want to retract it. You know, when it comes out, you want it to flex out and push back in. So I'm going to put the seal in that way. And here's my new dust seal, and I'm pretty sure it's flat. So make sure you lube these up, guys. Make sure you get brake fluid on them. Oil seal went in there real nice and easy. This dust seal's fighting me. See how it wants to lip? Don't jam your piston in like that. See how it's nice and concentric up there? And then when you get over here, it's sticking down. You don't want that. It's got to look like this all the way around before you try to put that piston in. Get these boots full of grease, guys. Get some grease packed down inside those holes around where those pins are going to be. If you lose your side-to-side motion on your pins, then your pads wear crooked and funny. Okay. Bleed-in brakes with an evacuator. When I did these on the RM250, if you go back on my YouTube channel and look at the RM250 videos, I did it all at home with gravity. That's how a lot of you guys are going to do it. But I wanted you to see how the professionals do it in a shop with a vacuum bleeder. Okay, you start out the same. You fill your reservoir. You let the bubbles settle. You let it get some liquid down into the reservoir. Not much flow's happening. See, that's what happens at home, guys. See that little bit of flow in that? When I'm pulsing this, that's all you're getting at home without a vacuum bleeder. That's all you get, and it takes forever to fire them up and get them going. Now, watch this. Watch what happens when I put some vacuum to this vacuum bleeder. Go ahead and just open that up and put vacuum on it. And look at that. Look at it pulling now, guys. See how much faster that is? I don't know if you can hear me over the air noise, but this is how professionals bleed brakes. See that? I'm already firm. I already have a firm pedal that fast. You guys saw me do the RM videos. See how long it takes at home without the right tools. I've already got a firm pedal. Now I'm going to bleed it through more just to make sure I got all the air out. But that gives you a representation of how quick you can do it with a vacuum system. Pump this lever up, get pressure, and hold it down, and while you're holding it, crack this loose. And then the suck machine gets all the fluid out of the valve into there and collects it in the can. So much faster. So much faster. So much easier. And I also think you get a better job out of it. I think you get more air out. Keep that line off that tire. Okay, look at these cable guides, guys. This is the correct part in the correct place for the lower. The upper was not available. It's totally on dealer back order. None of the other dealers had it. Kawasaki had no release date. So I took a lower and just cut a hole off of it and slid it up to use it on the upper. And I left that flange there as high as it is to give it strength this way, to give it, a lot of rigidity. Slotted that over about as far as I could go with that flange. Let's see if that gave me what I need. We're good to go now. But yeah, that's what I had to do. Couldn't get the correct part, so just used the incorrect part and did a little bit of bracketry work there.